I am Community Chloe. Welcome to Her Story RVA, a virtual women's empowerment series curated with Black women in mind. This episode is sponsored by Virginia Neonatal Perinatal Collaborative. And we're back with Her Story RVA. Now, this evening, we will be discussing the importance of representation in breastfeeding imagery and resources. Breastfeeding Week aims to promote positive and empowering images of Black breastfeeding mothers and babies. According to the CDC, increased breastfeeding among Black women could decrease infant mortality rates by as much as 50%. Now, that's some good news. Tonight, we're going to be joined again with founder and executive director of Urban Baby Beginnings, Stephanie Spencer, as she continues to share resources and connect us with all things Virginia Maternal Quality Care Alliance. Stephanie, come on in.
Hello, it's great to be here again.
All right, Stephanie, so tell folks a little bit about you. I know we're on monthly, but we always have new viewers.
Yes, absolutely. So I am the founder and executive director of Urban Baby Beginnings. I'm a mom of three, but I'm also a registered nurse too. And what really brought me into this space is my own journey being a mother and seeing and relating to other families who were having similar issues. So I'm really excited to be here to share my journey and then also help others to have the supports that they need as well.
I am so glad you're here. We're going to have a nice dialogue this evening. I'm also excited to introduce a very special guest who is joining us. Please welcome Nichelle Clark, who is an international board certified lactation consultant and owner of Sunshine and Rainbows Lactation Services. How you doing, Nichelle
Howdy.
Clark?
I am doing well. Thank you. That was a mouthful. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate that.
So tell folks a little bit about you as you providing this lactation service.
Yes, so it's a really long title. The short title is IBCLC, and I am a lactation consultant. I have my own private practice. That means that I don't work inside of a hospital or birthing center. I have my own office, and we work within the community. We see parents like once they've left the hospital, once they're home and having some breastfeeding or chest feeding issues. All things lactation, all things human milk, everything from adoptive parents to multiple parents of twins or triplets. So I'm really excited to be here.
That human milk, that liquid
Yes.
gold. All right, we're going to get into this. We're here tonight to discuss the importance of Black breastfeeding and bring awareness to why it is essential to Black mothers. In your own words, why do you think it's important for us to talk about breastfeeding among Black mothers and the significance of it? Let's start with you, Stephanie.
Well, definitely for sure. We know that there are health implications to feeding our babies naturally and using, as you call that liquid gold. And those implications are lifelong for both parties. So that's going to be the first thing. And as you mentioned before, there can be reductions in infant mortality as a result of moms feeding their babies breast milk. But the other thing I want to talk about is that it's important to normalize the conversation about infant feeding, and that's something that doesn't necessarily happen, and especially in the Black community. And so what we really want to let people know at the very beginning is that these infant feeding talks are extremely important. And part of that is hearing it from other mothers' mouths about what's really happening and what's keeping them from being able to feed their babies successfully. So that's why it's important. And that's why we really came to you all to spread this word and continue
Yeah.
to spread this word within our communities.
And I'm truly honored that you're here to spread this world. You're a breastfeeding mother, Nichelle, and also me. Nichelle, Black women have the lowest breastfeeding initiation and duration rates. As an international, I love to say that, international board certified lactation consultant and owner of Sunshine and Rainbows Lactation Services, you understand the risk and disparities about breastfeeding within Black women. Can you expand on this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing everything that Stephanie said, and a lot of times I have to explain it to people. It's life and death. It really is.
Yeah.
Black parents, Black moms, we have the highest infant mortality rate. We have the highest readmissions for feeding related issues or,
Mhm.
in the immediate postpartum period. So it's really a thing of life and death. breastfeeding reduces the risk of SIDS. It reduces the risk of diabetes. It reduces the risk of certain cancers for the parent. So
Yeah.
there are really things like life and death that are keeping parents from experiencing some of these things. And we're not really having these conversations. You know, a lot of times it's kind of, you're going to breastfeed, you're going to not. And parents really don't understand the severity or the implications that it can have on just overall health and wellness.
Right. And when we talk, Nichelle, about infant mortality, break that down for folks who really don't understand what that means, because we hear it a lot. Infant mortality, infant mortality.
Yeah, infant mortality, and it's kind of a sad topic to talk about, but it is something that
Yeah.
we need to have conversations about.
Yeah.
It is when an infant passes away in the immediate period postpartum, and so parents coming home, experiencing things like gastrointestinal issues or things like NEC, which is a bacteria that can, eat away at the intestines. And so things like that, the babies experience, preemie babies. Black women have the highest incidence of preterm birth. So if we're having the highest incidence of preterm birth and babies aren't able to digest these things, can lead to things like infant mortality and things like maternal mortality. Human milk feeding, breastfeeding, when you're nursing, it contracts the uterus. And so this can stop bleeding and things like that. And parents having to be readmitted for conditions and things like that.
Plus, you can also snatch that waist.
Oh, yeah.
For real, for real. All right, Stephanie, I got to throw that in there, right? The most common reason for cessation of breastfeeding is perceived as insufficient milk supply. Members at Urban Baby Beginnings have access to health specialists such as lactation professionals. Why do you all provide this? And what are the benefits of mothers working with a lactation professional?
Yeah. Um, one of the reasons why people, like you said, stop breastfeeding is because they think that they're not producing enough to be able to feed their baby. And, breastfeeding is not a very visual experience. So, we're used to seeing bottles that have, 2 to 4 ounces of milk in it and things like that. And that's what we've normalized. I can even remember going through nursing school and feeding babies these 2 ounce bottles, not realizing that babies' stomachs are like this small. And so, during those first few days. And so,
Yeah.
with that being said, the reason why it's so important that people are connecting with individuals in the prenatal period is so that we can normalize what it really looks like when a baby is born to feed them. And it's really difficult when you don't know everything or you don't know some part of what you need to do to protect and preserve and promote breastfeeding. And we tended to sabotage some of those experiences in the earlier days. So as an example, we know that there's a large percentage of moms who supplement their babies within the first 2 days of breastfeeding in the hospital. But when they're working with a lactation professional, even a doula, lactation consultant in the prenatal period, they can receive information, evidence-based information to help protect that space so that they're more apt to get the supports that are needed to be more successful. With that being said, it is important, so important to connect with not only support groups where other people are breastfeeding, because that normalizes the experience and it gives you champions that can help you move forward. It's important to know the different types of roles in terms of the lactation space, whether it be peer counselors or lactation counselors. And then in Nichelle's case, where she's really in that clinical space as a international board lactation consultant, it's extremely important to connect with those services as well, because some things that we do can be headed off earlier on before it really truly becomes a problem, and supplementation is necessary, not because there's a medical condition, but because of something that we've done to help intervene, which ends up being more of a challenge in the long term because we didn't know what to do.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. Now back to you, Nichelle. 13% of Black babies are born preterm, yet prenatal lactation education is not standard. Can you tell us more about Sunshine and Rainbow's lactation services and how it came about? What is lactation education and why is lactation education so important?
Yeah, I'll give you the clip notes. So it came about because I have my own child, I have my own son, and we did have prenatal education, but it was lacking. I remember signing myself up for a class. My husband took a class. I had my in-laws take a breastfeeding class because they were going to be around my breastfed baby, and it was
Yeah.
really important to me. I chose to pump with my son, but I really wanted them to know kind of how to handle that. And the education was just lacking. And so I kind of reached out to a couple lactation professionals, and they kind of told me, you'll never do it. You know, if you don't do it this specific way, you're not going to be able to maintain your milk supply. You're not going to be able to feed this baby. You better have a plan B. You better be looking into supplementation, kind of like Stephanie said.
Mhm.
And I love a good challenge. And so my son was 6 months
Me
old, and I
too.
decided to become an IBCLC. And that's really kind of how it was birthed. He was the catalyst for it. So it's Son, SON, Shine.
Yeah, I
But
picked that.
yeah, yeah. So that's my muse, my reason. I have my little rainbow girl now. So that's really how it came to be. When we talk about, prenatal education, it should be standard. And we're really seeing that it's not. Parents aren't
Mhm.
equipped with the tools that they need. And
Yeah.
one of the things is, if the parents have that education and that information, they're normally willing to either say, okay, well, this part works for me, this doesn't. And they ask more questions. They're doing their own research. But Stephanie mentioned a very good point about sabotage. And so we have things when we're not giving parents all of the options, all of the resources that they have. Sometimes it's, because we're in a food desert, or we're in an area that doesn't
Yeah.
know, they don't have lactation professionals. And there are many of us out there, like we said, there's peer counselors, there's lactation counselors, even
Mhm.
before it gets to a clinical side where IBCLC steps in. But the parents just don't have the information that they need to make an educated decision about that. I meet a lot of parents who say, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I didn't know that I could ask for help from a lactation consultant. The first couple of days when I was in the hospital were a blur. I don't know who came in and out of the room, if we're being honest, or they just don't have that support within their community.
Mhm. And I'm glad you're here because when I had my daughter 16 years ago and I breastfed, the lactation specialist at the hospital comes in and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the baby on the breast. Let's go. And so I was like, oh my God, this is not comforting. It's not like I've had any other baby before. So I'm glad this service is here for all of us. And you know what, Nichelle, I got to come back to you. And Stephanie, I want to hear your experiences as well. What are exactly the benefits of breastfeeding, Nichelle?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I could go on for days. We talk about, a lot of times we talk about the cost benefits, right? Where we can buy anything from the stores off of Amazon, but there are cost benefits. Babies who are breastfed have a lower incidence of sickness and illness. And I don't mean that breastfed babies don't get sick. They do get sick.
Mhm.
But because they're having the antibodies and the growth hormone, sicknesses generally do not last. And that has been studied. So whether, the average child will go 5 days with a cold, breastfed babies generally have a shorter period of that. And so, of course, that's a cost savings for the parent, not having to take off of work, not having to do sick visits and things like that. There's so many immune benefits. They just have the capability and the ability to fight that off. Gastrointestinal issues are put at bay. Breast milk is permeable, and it's very easily digested. So they don't have to worry about, their body straining to digest human milk. Oh my goodness. We talked about SIDS. We talked about lower incidence of diabetes, but it also slashes the risk of childhood obesity in half.
Yeah.
Because breastfeeding, whether you're nursing or you're bottle feeding, it teaches children to pace themselves, meaning they don't have to gobble everything down. They can take their time. They know that the food is there. And those are just great wellness practices as well for later on in life.
Mhm. That is good stuff. I'm pretty sure, Stephanie, you've experienced some of that. Let's talk about your experiences
Oh,
as benefits for your babies in breastfeeding.
all the things. And so, my children are much older now, so I can attest to all the
Yeah.
things. So I am the study. So
Yes.
I did breastfeed all of my babies, and I had one premature baby and then two babies that were full term, and had the gamut of challenges and things like that. But one of the things that I knew was that I wanted to keep my baby close, and I wanted to feel
Mhm.
like I was contributing to something. I carry this baby for 9 months. I could do something else, and so I think that one of the things that breastfeeding also does is that it allows that the mom and the baby to have a different level of attachment. That's why we're really trying to promote that golden hour, putting the baby to the
Yeah.
breast, making sure that mom and baby continue to stay one, and breastfeeding continues to allow for that. And also studies have shown that there's a reduction in breast cancer as a result of our moms who are breastfeeding as well. So
Mhm.
what I know, at least in my experiences, was that I had, babies that were very well adjusted,
Yeah.
in terms of their attachment with me. They were able to express what their needs were. And it wasn't something where, I
Mhm.
had these shrill screams and cries all the time. Like, we were very just
Wow.
attuned to one another. And I felt that with all of my children, and whether that be because of just us being together, or a part of that being the breastfeeding experience, all of those things I think contributed to
Yeah.
them being very healthy and happy,
Mm.
kids and now young adults.
Yeah. And that happened to me 16 years ago. And I was just thinking back, whenever she was hungry or she was antsy, she just give me an eye contact. And it was a different form of communication because, and it helps you. And I'm pretty sure Stephanie and Nichelle, you can attest to this. It helps you with your diet. You were
Yes.
really particular and specific about what you put into your body, which helped us lose weight, but it was healthier for the baby. And so
Yeah.
my daughter started walking at 9 months, almost 10 months. And soon as she hit that floor, that ground, that was it. And she's been
Hmm.
slim ever since. And I think a lot of times when we're talking about breastfeeding, we never talk about the benefits now.
Hmm.
We're always looking at the infancy of the baby, but we're not
Yeah.
talking about where our kids are now. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that, Nichelle and or Stephanie?
Yeah, just that long term sustaining. Like I said, it's great practices and healthy practices, and a lot of times too in the postpartum period. And postpartum extends not just the first few weeks after a baby is born, but having parents to remember to eat. Hey, you have to eat and you have to put fuel inside your body in order to be able to produce this breast milk. So just reminding the parents to eat things like that. And, some parents will tell me like my appetite has changed. Like just the things that I crave
Mhm.
are different than what I craved before. And of course you can still have, your nice little junk stuff and put your coffee in there if you need to have a glass of wine. But
But
parents
if
are
they
really
don't
just
like
a
it,
little, yeah, they're a little bit more conscious about that. And the babies as well, they come in all shapes and sizes. But
yeah.
again, we cannot deny the research is out there that these babies and they become healthy people because they're healthy babies and they become healthy people. And it's all because that foundation was laid by the parent.
Wow, this is good stuff. Only 77% of Black women ever do any breastfeeding, compared to 89% of their white counterparts. Breastfeeding reduced the risk, as we mentioned before, of SIDS, childhood obesity, diabetes, asthma, and gastrointestinal issues. Don't let me say that part again. I won't say that again. Now, this is going to be the closing question. What is it? What message do you want to leave with our viewers in reference to breastfeeding? Or if you're considering it, or you want to get more education from it? Let's go, Stephanie.
Um, I think the first thing is just recognizing that all of these decisions are very hard, to do. There's so many other factors that people have to put into play to make the best decision for them. But also, I want people to know not to take that decision lightly. Everything that you're going to do for your baby is going to be work. And sometimes what I hear moms say is that that's a lot of work to breastfeed my baby. It's also a lot of work to do a lot of other things. I can attest to that. Remember, I told you I got older children. With that being said, I want to encourage people to seek out other voices that can provide information, unbiased information.
Hmm.
Both Nichelle and I represent, many parts of the community, whether it be in the maternal health space or it being mothers, being Black women, and being Black professionals. And we're able to provide resources and tools that help people to make those decisions that are best for them. With that being said, I also want to say don't give up, because there are people that are in your corner that understand the all the things that you have to take on as a mom, and want to help. We want to help be cheerleaders. So put yourself in spaces where people can continue to do that for you and uplift you so that you can meet your goals.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. How do we gain access to your resources and services?
So I always send people over to urbanbabybeginnings.org, and I let them know to put in a referral. And at that point, they are connected to our services. And my hope is that even if it is that you need to know what are some of the other resources in the community, that you still reach out to us so that we can get you to professionals such as Nichelle and others who can help you through your breastfeeding journey.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Nichelle, all right. How do we improve breastfeeding rates among Black women, and how do we connect with your resources and services?
Yes, we have to start having these open and honest conversations. Again, a lot of times it's not talked about. For me, I'm not a first generation breastfeeder because I'm sure someone in my lineage is breastfed, but there was a kind of a disconnect. And so we have to start having open and honest conversations about this. And I would tell parents that breastfeeding doesn't have to look one certain way. I think we get very stuck into like, this just looks like, the nurse coming in and jamming the baby into the breast. This is what it looks like. And it doesn't have to look like that. I mean, there are working parents, nurses, postal workers, sanitation workers, teachers, all kinds of people breastfeed their babies. And there is a solution out there. We just have to seek it out. Unfortunately, it's not as super commonplace, but definitely reach out. And I would definitely tell people that there is lactation support for every budget. I think that's another thing that I hear a lot in private practice is it's expensive or it costs a lot. It can, but there's lactation professionals for every budget. Like Stephanie said, we talked about the peer counselors. Maybe you don't need an IBCLC, and I know this sounds crazy to some people, but not everyone needs an IBCLC. Sometimes they just need that peer support. Sometimes I take them as far as they need to be clinically, but they still need some support. And so they want a lactation counselor, someone who's really going to just be there to support them. And for me, you can find me. My website is www.sunshine with an O and rainbows.com. So you can find me there, reach out to me. I do have resources on my website, free resources for parents, little handouts, just can kind of navigate you if you have those basic questions. And I'm on all the social medias at Sunshine and Rainbows Lactation, so you can always find me there.
All right. Do we have any breastfeeding examples on your social media?
We do. I actually, so if you go
Really?
to my homepage, I took a photo shoot with my daughter and my son. With my son pumped, and I never latched him, and with my daughter, I did latch her. And so I took a photo shoot with them. So we got our own stock photos of black and brown babies because I couldn't find any anywhere. So yeah, we have some examples and some positionings, and just kind of how to make it work.
Good. That's good. Thank you so much for joining us. Nichelle Clark is an international board certified lactation consultant and owner of Sunshine and Rainbows Lactation Services. And of course, the founder and executive director of Urban Baby Beginnings. Stephanie Spencer, thank you so much for all you do. A wealth of information has been shared, and we all can breastfeed. Well, I mean, folks who are considering it, they can do it. Had my chance to do it, and I love it. I loved it at the time, and I can see the difference in my baby girl now. So thank you so much once again to our sponsor, Virginia Neonatal Prenatal Collaborative and Maternal Quality Care Alliance. And again, thank you to our viewers for being a part of this wonderful evening. God bless you, and thank you again.
Thank you.